Welcome back to the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm very excited to have Chazz Gold on with us today. Chazz, how you doing, my friend?
I'm very well.
Can you give the listeners a quick introduction to who you are?
My name is Chazz Gold. I am a photographer slash artist. I guess like crypto enthusiast that I'm trying to learn a bit more about. I also do addiction counseling for a living. I've been clean and sober for 7 years.
Oh, congrats. That's amazing.
Thanks. And at the moment I'm doing art, but I'm also doing full-time addiction counseling in a methadone clinic in Portland, Oregon. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Give me some insight. So you're a photographer, you're an artist. When did those interests and hobbies and careers sort of start for you?
When I was 14, my grandpa gave me my first camera and taught me how to do all kinds of crazy stuff with light. You know, he remember my earliest memory of him was taking me outside, and when I'm like on my 14th birthday, he brought me a Nikon F5 old film camera, these big bulky square metal things, and taught me how to load the film into it. And we first had like a 110 camera with like little flash bulb things, little square things, little flat things, yeah. So, and he took me out like he used to collect scrap metal for a living. So he would always come pick me up early in the morning in the summers, you know, and spring, and take me with him to work. And I would always sleep in the cab of the truck and wake up later. But this time he was like, "Come on, I want to show you something." He shows me this camera, teaches me to load the film, takes me out to what we used to call the back 40 of the farm that I grew up on, and he shows me how like he's like there's this house on the back of the field, and like past our fence, our neighbor's place, and he goes, "See how the sun's rising above the house, behind the house?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "See how there's all kinds of dew and stuff everywhere, and like there's like drips falling off the leaves?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I want you to try to capture the prism through one of the dewdrops as the sun comes up right over the crest of the edge of that house that's rising behind, and I want you to capture that rainbow that's going to come through those dewdrops."
Very easy ask for a person who's never taken a picture before.
Yeah, right? I'm like, and I did it. I actually had like a 36 by 24 print of that on my wall until I was like 26, 27.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, but that was my first. And then we used to run around all town and like take photos, and like he taught me all kinds of stuff on how to do like how to shoot photos like after it rained with puddles, like you shoot lay down in the ground and like get wet and like shoot into the puddle and like catch the buildings, the reflections in the with a wide angle lens, and like so you catch the street and the building, but he would catch like that reflection, that double reflection of the buildings through the puddles and stuff. And those stuff like that, it's like really cool shit.
That's awesome. So you started at a young age, and did it stick with you from like 14 and on?
Yeah. I dropped it for a little while. I got into some trouble when I was a kid and went to juvenile hall and shit. And, you know, ended up when I was 17, I ended up in San Francisco and was a little street urchin little kid down there. And this guy came down from the Sacramento Bee in 1988 and did a story on street kids in San Francisco. And when I was like 21, I was up here in Portland during the Rodney King riots. And this guy who was a photographer at PSU came down and did a bunch of portrait pictures of me and my punk rock friends down at Pioneer Square. And 2 days later, he shows up with a bunch of prints to give us like gifts for us, let him take our pictures and stuff. And he pulls me aside and he goes, "Is this you?" And he shows me this book. And apparently the article in 1988 won the Photojournalism Award of the Year International.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it was an article about me, one of the person about street kids in San Francisco.
Wow.
And I looked at this kid and I was like, "I know what I want to do now." And he's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "I want to do photojournalism." And he was like, "Well, if you're serious," he's like, "I got a bunch of extra cameras and stuff. My dad's like this famous photographer here in Portland, like international guy. And like, he's like, I got an extra Pentax K1000 I could just give you." And I ended up starting pounding out with this kid. And I actually went to Portland State University where he was taking classes right at the start of the term. And I started taking classes without being registered. And I got away with it for about 5 months till towards the end of the term. And then they were like, "You don't really go here."
You're like, "No, I don't."
Yeah, I was like, I was just sitting in on classes. I thought it was cool. My friend, they were like, "Oh boy," like, and the teacher was like, "You got a lot of promise as a photographer, kid. Keep it up, whatever you do, but you can't keep coming back to classes here unless you register. So just get registered." I was like, whatever. I was like little, like, little asshole back then. I was like 20, 21,
Uh-huh.
So, but I kept that Pentax 1000. I went back down to San Francisco about 6 months later after that, and started doing nightclub photography with that camera. And from that point on, I was doing nightclub photography and street photography for years in San Francisco. Did a couple of gallery shows down there. Did one called the first gallery show I ever did was called the Ram Goddess, and it was all black and white 4x film, that 400x film that I took of like just random beautiful, or maybe not so beautiful, or just random women around San Francisco, and just took pictures of them, and like ended up doing this whole gallery show at this place called 111 Minute Gallery. There was also a nightclub, and we did it as a breast cancer awareness fundraiser. And then we had like random, you had to go through the gallery to get to the dance floor, and we had all girl DJs. This crew called the Sister SF back then, and it was all house music and like drum and bass and techno and shit like that. And we had random lengths and heights throughout the whole gallery. We had these black and white photos and mats, and you had to walk through this maze of like black and white photography to get to the dance floor, to get to the music. And like, it was the Random Goddess. Everything was like hung at like random lengths and heights
Mm-hmm.
from like wires in the ceiling. So that was the first big show that I ever did. I was like 22 years old back then. It was like 1992.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I also toured with Lollapalooza '91. I was a roadie for Jane's Addiction for Perry Farrell, and ended
Wow.
up pulling around with this guy named Bob. That turns out he's like this famous photographer that works for um like Rolling Stone and shit. He was teaching me how to do like film, like band photography with my little Pentax. I brought like a whole case of film with me to go. Like when I wasn't loading in and out for the band for Jane's, I was running around on those different stages because I had to fall so fast. And I'd take advantage of it and just started doing, and that's how I learned how to do like concert photography too.
That's
So
awesome. So
yeah,
your photography is hit in a bunch of different genres. Do you
yeah,
have
yeah.
do you have like a preference? Do you have like a main true love like street photography or
Just people,
portraiture?
really people. I mean, my latest project, the Shapes of Divine one, is just like I have two projects right now as NFTs, and they've always been projects well before they were. So the portrait one that I have is it's a lot of like, I like doing portrait photography that has kind of a theme to it, or like it's just really gritty and real. You know what I mean? I don't like having to Photoshop portrait photography. I like doing my own lighting,
Yeah.
my own settings, my own like wherever I'm at, like setting things up the way I want it to be set up, and like, and it's so I actually did a gallery show at up here in Portland with all my photography from when I was down in Los Angeles. I lived in LA this last time from 2011 2015, and I lived at this really crazy warehouse called Space 748. Man, it was so cool, dude. It was like this. We had a 12,000 square foot like room that was 40-foot ceilings. It was just like this empty room, and like we used to have DJs and after hours in there. But during the day, we had like three different lighting systems, a bunch of old lighting and a bunch of new lighting, and like and there was this other photographer named Barry that lived there, and he used to like create these crazy backgrounds, and like different sets and stuff. And he was friends with this guy that owned a fabric company over in
Garment
over in
district.
the fashion district. Yeah, in the fabric district. And we used to like trade him drugs and shit to like go bring us big huge bolts of fabric. So we had this 700-foot square wall, the long wall, 40 feet tall, with like a rope that ran across the top of it, and like 60 different kinds of fabrics that we just string across the room and use it as different backgrounds.
That's sick.
Yeah, we had an old sit down big like a baby grand piano in there. We used to like roll around to different parts of the warehouse and like just like pose people on it and do all kinds of crazy shit with it. And like we had a whole collection of and black mannequins in there. So that made for like very interesting photography sometimes. I mean, like we pose people in between the mannequins, or like pose them like naked around them, and like or put them in weird clothes or situations and do weird lighting with it and shoot all kinds of filters and like different like colors and gels and stuff. And it was just cool. It was like the year that I lived there, I think probably did the most amazing like artsy photography portrait wise that I ever did in my entire life. you know.
Hmm.
So
And,
I
and
got
and does
one
somebody?
other little thing is when I lived in San Francisco in 2009, I had brain surgery and I got hurt in a home invasion, cracked in the head with a hammer on the left hand side. So I had to learn how to shoot left handed. So I actually use a Sony because I can use back then it was like the middle of the grip had the vertical release in it, and I can shoot left-handed with it. And with the new ones, I can shoot left-handed because it's so small. So yeah, so I actually I'm actually a left-handed photographer.
Yeah, which is few and far between for sure. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up because we talked about the accident or assault, whatever you want to call it, on a Twitter space, a few months back. Um, so you're kind of like going through life. You're like working, creating art, making amazing photographs, and then like something like this level of catastrophic hits you personally. Talk to me about like that experience, what that was like having to learn and function as a human being again with new limitations that you hadn't experienced before in your life.
It was interesting because right before that happened, I was living in this house in in Lower Haight Street, and that's where it happened at. And I found myself doing weird things with my left hand. Like it was like I was trying to teach myself for no reason at all to become ambidextrous. It was almost like the universe was like something inside of me knew this was going to happen.
Wow.
And I remember that happening. I was like, and then it happened, and I was in a hospital for like 4 months. I was in a coma for 12 days. I was in a rehabilitation hospital for 4 months,
Wow.
and it was just kind of like lost. I didn't know really where to go, who to go to, where to go. Ended up like kind of bouncing around with friends for a couple of weeks in California, up in like Vacaville and like up in Emory, in Fairfield and stuff. Friends that had houses out there that were trying to take care of me, and I was just out of my mind. I didn't know. Knowing what I know now, and knowing what I know then, like in hindsight, like I thought that I was fine. I was running around like driving a car and everything.
Shouldn't
That
have done
was
that.
just,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
I should be doing that. You know what I mean? Um, but like when I got out to Oregon, I came to stay with my sister up here, and she actually pretty much rescued me, like brought me into her house and like gave me her whole basement to like just fix up and hang out in for like a whole year, helped me get on disability, and it took that whole year to just kind of like take a rest from life. Just let her take care of me, let family just take care of me. And then I got I finally got disability after 10 months after I applied for it, and that's what it takes a while to get it, you know. Um and they gave me a back pay check. So they gave me like I think it was 10 grand or something like that. And the first thing I did was I ran down to Camera World. It's not even there anymore in downtown Portland. And I bought an A700 with the vertical grip and three lenses and a flash and all the gear in the bag and all the gear that I needed to start shooting. And I just went crazy. I just started like every day I was walking around taking photos of everything and everyone that I could possibly like put my camera at, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I got back into nightclub photography in Portland then and like did a lot of the underground rave type stuff and warehouse stuff and the house music stuff. But it was definitely different. It was like having to learn left handed and having to learn how to like live without that right hand. It's like living with having one hand tied behind your fucking back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? 'Cause I literally like the only it's like that's all I get. It's like a little bit of a grip on the right hand side. Like most of the time, I'm on faces on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces. This is what I'm doing. I'm holding my phone in my right hand because it has enough grip to hold that. That's the only thing I can really do with my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Is hold my phone up to talk into it when I'm on Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse or when I'm on the phone call.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean. So like it's definitely been like a journey. Like going back to school was challenging. Um, because I have dyslexia with numbers and symbols now.
From the
So that's
accident.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I graduated 3.87 GPA and like president's list, so
It's pretty good.
yeah, not bad, not bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it took me 4.5 years to graduate, but
I mean, I
while I
got.
was when I first started school, I took a photography class also, and I didn't need to, and that's where the real things really started to kick in then.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with what I'm doing now. So
I mean, that's a pretty incredible journey. I don't think there are a lot of people who would go through something that traumatic and then be able to still incorporate in art in their life, right? Like I feel like anytime someone would experience that level of a limiting event in their life that prevents them of doing something that they had done for so long with such ease, that they would tend to shun that thing, right? Like, okay, my right hand doesn't fully function anymore. I'm probably not going to try to take pictures anymore. And I
They
think
don't
it's
make a left-handed camera.
yeah,
They don't exist. There's one in existence in all of time.
yeah, it's crazy.
Nikon made one for a war photographer back in the 70s in Vietnam who lost his arm in the war. That's the only left-handed camera that's ever existed in the entire world.
I mean, that's just it's just an insane thing to think about, right? In a world where pretty much everything is geared towards people with either dominance, like it's a monetary thing. I would imagine they're not going to sell a lot of them, and the cost to produce is going to be exorbitant for them. And why would they're like, fuck it, who cares?
Did you know that people in the 50s and 60s they used to force kids that were left-handed to be right-handed?
I did know
They
that.
thought, yeah, that was a religious thing. They actually thought that people that were southpaws were of the devil.
Yeah.
They had demons in them.
Well, and there was just like there were limitations to it because at the end of the day, because it's like what I think 95% of human beings are right-handed or right-hand dominant. It's like 8%. I think I might have made that up. Statistics are fake anyway.
Something like that.
Right.
Well,
So,
the way I look at it is like this: I got struck in the left-hand side of my head. That's where all the numbers, the logic, all the math, all the languages, all that stuff lies. Now, I used to speak like fluent Hebrew, Yiddish, a little bit of Mandarin, Cantonese, a little bit of and fluent Spanish. And I wrote like 7 different different languages of computer code. I used to just like fuck around with Linux just because it was fun,
mhm.
and just used to break into systems and shit just because like it was just the thing to do. Like I used to love like my favorite build for Linux was Kali Linux, and I just break into people's computers just to see what's in there. I never stole anything. I never fucking did any harm, but I was like, oh look, I can get this back door, and like I saw that movie Hackers back in the 90s, and I was like,
Great
can
movie.
you really change TV shows on a TV station late at night at PBS? I'm like, oh, it can, you can, you
um,
know,
and then after the accident, you lost all that.
gone. Like I can remember a few words of Hebrew and Yiddish and Cantonese, but and Spanish. I can kind of hear it, understand a little bit of it when I hear it on TV or like when people speak it around me. And like every time I try to sit down and look at code on the computer, I'm like, it's like a faint echo in the back of my brain. I just get fucking frustrated. I'm like, fuck this. Never mind.
Can you talk to me about, so like obviously there was a incredible physical trauma that transpired, but can you talk to me about like the emotional damage that was tied to that? Like what was that process like? Because obviously you've got the physical hurdles that you need to overcome, but what about like healing from like an emotional perspective? And like you lost a lot, right? Like to the inability to, read and write in 6 different languages that you used to know, et cetera. Like, can you talk to me what that process was like?
Um, what, like relearning languages and stuff?
No, just like what was it like emotionally to kind of like come through that process, right? Like you had, a year of your life sort of taken from you when you had to learn to like retaught,
Learn how to walk, talk, speak, all that kind of shit
exactly.
again.
Yeah. Talk to me about what that process was like mentally to deal with.
I remember like being because I used to be really into like the whole house music, techno, like rave scene. That's like music's always been like a massive part of my life. I've been a DJ off and on all my life, but I never really like played out a lot. But I do it a lot at home, and I feel like music has a healing factor to it that bar none can help you heal. And I remember being in the rehabilitation hospital at Laguna Honda Hospital in San Francisco, and I was still in a wheelchair. And I went to my doctor, and I was like, "So listen, man, in 16 days they're having the 35th anniversary at the end of them, and I need to be there because I've never missed an anniversary since like the 20th one. I've been going there for 16 years, dude." And that's like that's my bar. You know what I mean? That's my place. Like even if I like was 86 and kicked out for doing some stupid shit, that I'd go hang out up front and like check IDs and like hang out with all the security and like just to be there for the anniversary. You know what I mean? Like because I used to get all kind of trouble at that bar. And my doctor was like, "You're out of your fucking mind, dude. There's no way in 16 days you're gonna be able to go. You're still in a wheelchair." I'm like, "Tell you what, I said, tell you what. If I can get up out of this wheelchair and I go to my PT classes every day and I get on a cane, you give me a weekend pass." And he was like, "Okay, all right, whatever, cool." And I was like, And like, what was it? 14 days later, I walked in with on a cane, and he was like, oh, "All right, dude, there you go." And my friend Twitch, this guy that I know, we just call him Twitch. I know him from Burning Man. So he's a paraplegic. He actually broke his neck in a pool accident, like
Oh
jumping in
wow.
a pool, not having enough water in it, and like he was all drunk like years ago. And he still goes out to Burning Man, still goes dancing, all that stuff. He's usually in a power chair, but he has like the crutches so he can get up and like kind of dance, like groove. And
Hmm.
he was just like, and like he was always in the hospital to visit me when this happened because he understood what I was going through.
Yeah.
You know, he's a really good friend, and he picked me up from the hospital that weekend, and we went to the end up, and I danced for like 8 hours, and I came back the next day with a cane around my neck and the sling that my arm was in, like threw it in the garbage. I didn't need it anymore because the weight of my right arm because the nerve damage was so heavy. I had to keep my arm in a sling,
Hmm.
and I didn't need it anymore when I came back, and I could my speech cleared up over that weekend. Like I could walk better that weekend. You know what I mean? And I walked in with a cane around my neck, and the doctor was just like, "Explain to me." And I was like, here's the deal. You put me or someone like me in a situation like mine in a pretty thick crowd of people on a dance floor with 120 to 125 BPM music, that simulates this sensation of the womb.
Wow.
It like that's the same BPM that you hear as a heartbeat in the womb. And you get in a dance where you're crushed in with all those people and you're dancing, you're moving your body and your mind and your nerves are going to react to that same feeling of having that feeling of healing. It's like being inside your mama. You
Wow.
know what I mean?
That's wild.
Yeah. The doctor was like, I need to write a paper on this. You
Yeah. So do you
know what I
think
mean? I've actually written a paper on people with traumatic brain injuries and stroke victims and the healing elements of electronic music or music with 120 to 125 beats as a heartbeat sound. And he's done a whole like I've been in touch with him off and on through the years, and like he wrote a whole like medical paper on shit.
I mean that's incredible. I did not know that at all. That's
Yeah,
incredible. So
it
you
actually help. It helps people with techno music can help people like heal. Basically, it's
that's
just
pretty
crazy.
that is crazy. So you think like between the experiences of that event and like I guess maybe getting out of the hospital was like an emotional healing
Yeah,
for you,
yeah.
like a mental.
That was when the healing started, and like and then coming up here to Oregon, it's just like I I mean I did my best like to get out of the house as much as I could. Like my sister lived like way out of the edge of town, and like I just wanted to be downtown all the time, and she was all the way. It's called Gladstone. And I was like, dude, I gotta get out of here. So like a lot of that first year was like a lot of like getting on the bus and the trains and walking and like physically moving around and like just talking to people and reading a lot of books and like and just you know trying to heal myself. My dumb ass was still like drinking though and like doing dumb shit. Like
Well, you were
I went
young,
back
right?
again like 4 years later after I got hurt, like used again for 3 years and did stupid shit like things I shouldn't have been doing that while my brain was supposed to be trying to heal.
Hmm.
You know, that's okay because here I am now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was curious. So you mentioned you were sober for 7 years, and I'm kind of curious, like how the physical and mental recovery from that accident sort of lended itself to, I guess, wanting to eventually get sober. What was that?
A lot of it did like I mean I think I part of me just got tired of getting high. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't work anymore.
Hmm.
It turns out that I actually have sleep apnea really bad, and like basically I was like doing a bunch of like drugs to like
Go to
make my
sleep.
brain like be normal and like so I could talk and like act normal because like I when I wasn't high like I would my words would just be slurred. You couldn't even understand what the fuck I said. You know.
When you
So when I
weren't
first
high.
got to, yeah
That's
when I first
crazy.
got to the coma I sounded like a minion
Oh wow,
like because all my language shit was all
discombobulated.
mixed up and like it's all scrambled inside my brain. Like I had 7 different languages running around in there, like trying to. And I'm trying. I thought that I was talking to my friends with English, and they were like, "What the fuck are you trying to say?" They brought me a Scrabble board,
Wow.
and that's when I realized I couldn't even spell.
Holy. Oh wow, that's crazy.
I was like, "Fuck!" And
Yeah.
like I didn't realize, like what I thought I was saying when I was in the hospital after I got hurt was not English. I thought it was, but it wasn't English. Like I
That's
literally sounded like a fucking minion, which is funny because my friend Boy Scout Brian from Burning Man works for Pixar, and he worked on that movie. And every time I see him, I'm like, how much did my speech inflections at that time have effect on the Minions' voices in that fucking movie, dude? And where the fuck are my fucking
I
royalties?
was just say, where's your,
Fuck you.
post
You know
credit
what I mean?
scene?
So I'm like, you're a dick, bro. He's like, and every time I see him, I say something. He's like, he just laughs at me, walks away, like shaking his head. I'm like, fucking such a dick, bro. Like,
I mean, that's pretty funny. I mean, I guess it's, a little funny.
it's kind of cool though in a way. Like, I'm like, wow, that means that my tragedy probably like brought how many smiles to millions and billions of people
For
that
sure.
have seen that movie. Did
I'm
that happen? Something with it?
I'm an unabashed Pixar fan, and Despicable Me is probably one of my favorites for sure.
Me too.
But
Me too.
what was it like getting sober and clean? So like you were getting tired of getting high, and you just sort
So
of decided one day.
yeah, I left San Francisco. I left Portland back in. I got hurt. I came back here. I got hurt on January 31st, 2009. Came up here until about 2000, till November of 2010. So I was up here about a year and a half or so, like a little bit less than 2 years. And I moved out on my own and got my own place in Portland out of my sister's place like 6 months before. And and I moved back down to Los Angeles in 2011, November of it, and then found myself by like New Year's of that year, I was back in my addiction again.
Mm-hmm.
I was at an after hours party. Somebody was smoking some shit, and like I was like, "Hey, it's like it's New Year's. I could party one time." Yeah, that never works. So
Down the rabbit hole.
like party down there, yeah, until 2015, and like part of me like was already like I was kind of over it in the first place. Like after a while, I was just like, "This sucks. It's not happening anymore." Like I'm tired of struggling with this drug, and all my other friends around me are twacked out of their minds, and they're all like doing shady shit. It's gonna get them thrown in prison or dead, And I was like, I just wanted to get out, and like on my birthday of 2015, I had a friend of mine come into town with his shaman from Peru, and they had some ayahuasca, and they were like, "You want to go up to this little campsite? We're gonna camp up by the Hollywood Hills, and by the Hollywood sign, like right in view of the Hollywood sign. Found a little spot we can actually sit down and like camp at for a couple of days and like not get bugged, and like we're gonna do ayahuasca." And I was like, "Okay, all right, I'll try that." You know what I mean? Because I'd heard a lot about it. I'd already done DMT a bunch of times, like so. I was like, I wonder what this is gonna be like. And I went and did it, and spent like 2 days and camped out in these hills, and like came back, and I was like, 2 days later, it's on May 2nd, I just stood up and I was like, "Who wants to drive me to sober living?"
Oh wow.
Like I had no desire left. I tried to get high one time between then and then, and like it just like it made me physically sick. And it's like, and then like mentally, emotionally, it just hurt me. It was just like this, like literally like a physical, emotional pain, like it's like a knife, like stabbing through my nerves of my emotions.
Wow.
And it's like there was like all the craving, all the wanting, all that shit for any of the drugs was just gone.
I mean, that's incredible.
It was just like it was like ego death, dude. I saw like I learned about like how to like commune with nature, how to talk to the fucking plants. Like I was like literally like everything around me was breathing and moving and like alive, and like I saw so much when I was on that trip. I literally saw like the inside of me like wither, die, go into the ground and be eaten by worms. Like I saw my own death and shit, but at the same time it wasn't like where or how I'm gonna die, but it was like this part of me was just like literally like eaten by the earth, and I became dust.
Whoa.
That was like the end of the ayahuasca trip, and I was like, and then and from that point on, I went to sober living, and that was 7.5 years ago now.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
What was it? So, like, how far into your sobriety did you decide to start getting into counseling and trying to help others?
I moved back up here from LA right after that. I went to sober living over by in the valley from May 2nd till right before July 1st. My dad and I, which we never really we got along, but like we didn't see eye to eye most of my life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And on the 28th of June, I called them, and he was like, "Come home." And it was my mom's birthday on July 1st. So I moved a bunch of shit around, like bought a bunch of gift cards from 3 different credit cards that I had a little bit of money on each credit card, and like bought enough gift cards from Southwest Airlines to buy one ticket one way to get up to Portland, and got home on July 1st of that year of 2015 for my mom's birthday, and it was like from that point on, it was like, and me and the like, it took me about a year after that, a year and a half after that, probably to start getting in. Like, I started volunteering with like Outside In and New Avenues of Youth and these companies up here in Oregon that work with like at-risk youth. And I realized, like, if I'm going to do this, I should be learning how to like do this professionally.
Yeah.
And like, so I enrolled at PCC, which is the community college. It's the only place that had it up here for those classes, and it's supposed to be a 2-year term, but because of where I live in subsidized housing, so I'd have really cheap rent in a really nice part of town, and so I couldn't take full-time classes, and like with the way my brain worked, I was scared to go to school anyways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I enrolled part-time and did 2 terms and towards the degree, towards the certification, and then was like, dude, this is really emotionally heavy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I decided to take those classes the next term to enroll for that, and I enrolled for Digital Photography 1. And this teacher, Kelly, her name is Kelly Pennington, I kind of became she was like, why are you taking this class? You could be fucking teaching this class. What the fuck's wrong with you? You know what I mean? She's like, you know more about me, more than I do about photography, probably.
Yeah.
You have much more experience. And I was like, I told her why. And she was like, all right, cool. So I became kind of the unofficial TA for the class. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And that was a good balance of having that photography. And that's when I came with the idea of like, what if I wanted to start my own nonprofit for at-risk kids to teach them how to do photography, videography, digital art, things like that. And you know what I mean? And like, and get my certification, get my degree. You know what I mean? Instead of getting my certification, get my degree in addiction studies, get my certification as a recovery mentor and as a CDAC and CAC2 while I'm here, get all that education out of the way. And I took a bunch of classes in like photography while I did that, and a bunch of graphic design classes on the side, so I could get the basic knowledge that I would need to really teach these things, at least keep people to get them started with things in a situation like that. And out of that whole class was we had to do a creative lighting class project, and Kelly used to stand in front of the projector all the time from the class. And I would see her like throw art up and photographer from the up on the board with the projector. She was always had these images projected on her, and I was like, well, what would happen if I like took some like fractals or like sacred geometry, which I was totally obsessed with at the time, and like project onto somebody's body, and make that my lighting class project. So I rented a little tiny dinky projector from the library and brought it home with me for like a week, and had one of my best friends come over who shot photos of me before for this class for other black and white photography class assignment, and it was a nude shoot, so like I knew that she'd be down to like do this and we actually used the iTunes visualizer, the first shoot that we ever did for this project.
Wow, throwback.
Yeah, and a bunch of like free wallpaper downloads. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of stuff that I just found online. It's before I even knew what the term visionary art was, or psychedelic visionary art. I had no idea what that kind of art was. I knew that I liked it, but I didn't know who the artists were. Didn't know what that was. Like that there was a whole culture and a whole like a whole thing behind it. Like even though I've been going to festivals for years, it didn't ever dawn on me that like, oh, that's visionary art. That's Alex Gray and Cameron Gray and you know what I mean, those guys, and like that whole industry, that whole like community of people. So yeah, then once that started picking up with the I started finding visionary art, and then I discovered what that was, and I started downloading all the free wallpapers I get by artists, by like that, like so. And then one day I was like, before in LA back in 2011, I was trying to do this whole photography thing where I was trying to do it was called the Tattooed Goddess, where I would do heavily tattooed women, photographs of them, and then I would make their skin black and white, but keep the colors the colors of the tattoos in.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was going to do a whole coffee table with that, and I was going to do like a Kickstarter page and like a crowdfunding. I actually got featured at the Raw Artists in Los Angeles and like 2012, I think it was. It's on YouTube. You like look up like Chazz Gold and Raw artists from 2011 or 12, something like that. Like from
That's awesome.
the Hall of Palladium. Yeah, there's a whole interview with me on there.
That's sick.
So yeah, that was back when my teeth were all fucked up. Like it's just like it was all bad, dude. Like you know what I mean? So
You've been through some
yeah,
shit, Chaz.
yeah.
What is it about the stuff that you've been through that makes you want to help other people?
Because I never really had anybody truly help me the whole time. I never found anybody that ever went through the things that I went through or understood where I was coming from. You know what I mean? I mean that there's people that could relate to it. There are people that understood it. There are people that were empathetic to it. There are people that were like understanding and and overly compassionate and like but there was nobody that I met really who'd gotten sober and gone through the shit that I've been through
Mm-hmm.
and made it out alive. You know what I mean? Like I remember reading like the biography of Jim Morrison. Like no one gets out of here alive.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt the whole time I was on doing drugs. I was like, no, none of us are gonna get out of this shit alive, dude. We're all gonna fucking die in the fucking mix, dude. Like,
Yeah.
this sucks.
The statistics, the probability of becoming a fully fledgling functioning human being after, suffering with addiction for that many years is low.
Very low, and I know that. And I'm really proud of myself. It's something that's one of my biggest. I'm pretty humble about it. I try not to talk about it too much, but there's a big point of pride in me that like that's what keeps me going on bad days.
I mean,
You know,
I think that's more than okay. I think you should be, I mean, for real. I mean, just, you know, I've got people in my life who have come and gone with the addiction and those who continue to fight it and those who have overcome it. Sobriety is a very, very difficult path for anyone, especially ones who have experienced significant trauma in their life. So for someone like you who's went through a like catastrophic event in their life, which changed everything about the path of their life, to then get sober, want to help other people, still create art, still be a photographer, still be an artist. I mean, that's fucking inspiring. That's incredible. There's not many people who would take like shit sandwich after shit sandwich and be like, yeah, I still want to help other people. They'd be like, fuck it, I'm going to do drugs till I die.
I mean, I still see those people every single day that come to my clinic. I have a caseload of 66 people at a methadone clinic, and you wouldn't believe how many of those people are actually artists.
Yeah,
and
well,
and it's funny, because when I'm like, close the door, let's talk about art. I mean, fuck a fucking session about
drugs.
what you went through, like how much fucking dope you did last week, or why you can't stop smoking blues, or whatever, or like your methadone's not fucking working, or whatever. Let's talk about like what drives you. Why are you still doing art? What drives you to do that art? And how can I help you propagate that to help that with your sobriety?
Yeah.
And I come up like that, you know what I mean? And like that's because that's what helped me get through it. And people actually listen to me.
Well, I mean, you've been doing it long enough. They should, right? I mean, you've gone through the battles yourself, right? So it's like one of those things. Like, do you want to go to war with a person who's never experienced battle before? Do you want to go with a general who's been there, done that, fought in the front lines?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
When you go through your daily life and you're helping people, how does that emotional toll like affect you? And then what do you do with like those? You mentioned you have 66 patients. I imagine they all go through varying degrees of sobriety, right? Whether they relapse, whether they make it, whether they pass away. I'm sure you've experienced every end of the spectrum from an emotional perspective. But when you deal with that sort of high stress job, how do you facilitate like the desire to create art when you have like, it's a heavy burden that weighs on you? So
at the moment, we're still doing COVID stuff. So that means a lot of my one-on-one sessions are taking place on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because there's like M1 to M27 status when you're on methadone. So M1s you have to come in and dose every day. M3 is like when you get to take two bottles home with you, and up to M27, which is where you get to take the whole 30 days all at once and bring it back. So a lot of my M27 patients, I just call them once a day and once a month on the phone. I have to check in with them, we talk for an hour. You know, I try to get them to at least come in and meet me once in person, just to get up my vibes. They understand who I am and like get my energy. And that works pretty well. But I actually bring my iPad with me to work, and I do all my photography here at the house with my Shapes of Divine thing, and my and my masking and everything prepped. And then I use this suite called Plotiverse to do my animation in, and it's on the iPad with the iPencil. And I bring it with me to work, so I'm in there, and I have 4 groups a week to do every Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. I have an hour one on Tuesdays, 1 on Fridays, and then 2 on Saturdays. And I'm by myself alone on Saturdays. It's like a half a day from 6:30 to 11:30. Right. So I bring my iPad with me, and anytime I'm doing a one-on-one session with somebody on the phone, or I do a group on the phone, I have my iPad out and I'm doing my animation or doing like, you know, working on my project at the same time. And my friend Nate actually brought up a good point there today, and he was like, this is a paper. This is a medical psychological paper you could write. He said, let me ask you one question. And he's like, I want you to think about this very deeply. He's like, do you think that doing art while you're talking to people about their issues and their problems gives you more empathy and has a different empathetic level while you're creating, while you're helping them?
Wow, that's interesting.
It's helping your mind up more and your emotions more, because art is emotional.
Yeah,
it's creation. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I never really thought about it until now. And I've had the last few days, I've thought about it a lot. And I was like, and I saw him last night. We have a crypto meetup every week near my apartment building. I use my community room to do our we have a dinner DAO that we're building right now. It's kind of we're trying to become the premier PNW like crypto meetup. You know what I mean?
Sweet.
Like,
yeah.
Weekly, monthly for like big dinners, and like one big dinner, and like 3 small little like meetups during the week or during the month. So, and I saw him last night. I was like, you know, I thought about what you said, and like the thing is like at work, I have 2 screens in front of me. I always have like a spreadsheet up with all my clients on it, and I have the calendar and like all my software on the left hand side, and I've got a Word document over here, and I'm like taking notes, and I'm like doing all this kind of shit for work. But when I do the one-on-one sessions in the groups and I'm doing my art, I don't want to be distracted by that, by not being able to like listen to people fully, completely when they need me to hear them. And when I'm doing my art and I'm listening to them talk, I hear everything. I hear every emotion, every nuance in their body, or in their voice. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to do those kind of sessions over the phone. So you don't know when somebody's bullshitting you.
Do you think so like I'm just going to use a broad concept in mind, but like, so I'm explaining to you like how I'm going through withdrawal, you know, what my process is like. I'm an M2, M3, whatever, right? And like I'm having a overly emotional week, like I broke up with my girlfriend, whatever it might be. Do you think those levels of emotions come out differently in your work while you're going through that?
I think so. Yeah.
That's cool.
I think that if you look at if you go to my Shapes of Divine project on OpenSea, right? And I always, I don't know if anyone ever noticed, but like when I promote it on Twitter or anywhere other social media, the link that I use, the one I always sort it to recently created. So it puts all the new stuff up top. I mean, that way it's like the old, because otherwise it just shows the no old shit, which is like, it's good, it's cool, it's the OG shit, it's all priced low at 1.11 instead of 0.22, but like it's not as good. I don't think it's I'm my own reverse critic too, but like I don't think it's as good as, but I'm also not going to swap it out for something different and something new, because I want people to see the progression of it. I want people to have those OG pieces.
Well, so I was gonna say, yeah, there's the progression of as an artist. The growth.
Right. I want people to collect that, you know, because there's a whole thing about collecting with that, getting that OG shit, and like what things that somebody did 5 or 6 years ago and somebody did some now. It's like, and their progression of like, it's just beautiful to see like the growth. And like one of my favorite artists is Glass Crane. If you ever know who he is, like, or then like Elos Project or you know, NFT Trippy, those guys, they do these amazing Lane, Glass Crane's actually his roommate. Those guys are like the most badass fucking 3D, like 4D cinema artists that I've ever seen in my entire life. But I've also been watching Glass Crane for 4 or 5 years now.
So you've seen the growth.
Yeah, so that's why I do this. That's for the same reason he leaves his old shit up. I leave my shit up too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so people can see that growth and people can see that progression. And I think that like these newer pieces in the last 3 months that I've been putting up, I think are a lot different. I think the animation's tighter. I think the music's better. I think that everything about it is just more fluid, more like it's just better. It's like, I mean, like it's hard to explain on a podcast without seeing it.
Yeah.
But like if you go to my IG, you'll see like a bunch of videos on I have an IG channel for Shapes of Divine. It's in my video tab, my IG.
Mm-hmm.
You can see like I have like a little gooseneck thing that I can hang my phone on above my iPad.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Like do like live videos on IG, and it stays as a recording.
Oh, that's
stays
awesome.
there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can make it part of the channel, that channel. So, and they're like 45-minute, an hour-long videos sometimes. Like I think it goes to 58 minutes is the limit. And you can see the progression of the work that I've done and the way that I animate and the way that I use the tools that I use now compared to what over the last, like what I've done the last 3 months, how much different, like just how tighter the masking and the creation and like everything about it's gotten like much more fluid. My hands got steadier, like everything. You know what I mean? Like, and I learned some new things the other day about how to physically do it too.
Yeah.
Which is
so like, will there be like darker tones, deeper, richer colors, lighter stuff in corresponding conversations as you work? In other words, so like if I'm telling you everything's great, like I'm doing so well, like will that come out in a certain way in your pieces as you're working, or?
I think maybe that I might choose which piece to work on based on the conversations that I'm having during those sessions. I think, yeah. So it depends on like how deep or dark it, or lighter, happier those conversations, how much easier they are.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's funny how many people in my clients that are artists. And like,
it's the tortured artist trope, right?
Talk about addiction. Like we talk about addiction for like 15, 20 minutes, and we talk about art and music and shit's going on in the world, and like, you know, like we talk about fun shit, dude. Like I don't try to like be that stiff upper lip fucking counselor that's. I even dress different. Like the 3 pairs of pants that I have for work are all like kind of like tech wear, like cargo pant, like well, you know what I mean, like
not khakis,
really nice, like everything black, and like I go to work and with either black polos or a black hoodie t-shirt hoodie get up thing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like at first, like I had to start wearing my badge at work because people were like, "Oh, I thought you were one of us." Like,
yeah.
I had to get a haircut because the same reason. You know what I mean? Cut my hair off, so I was like, I had a big old like mohawk and like a thick mohawk and like kind of a mullet, and they were like, I was like, this ain't gonna work, dude.
Like we need you to cut that a little bit evener.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely think it affects which pieces I choose to work on at the time that I'm working on them. You know what I mean? Or if I want to be there or not. If I'm in the kind of mood that I'm just like, God, do I really want to fucking be at work right now? Because I have those days too. Everybody has those days.
Oh, for
whether
sure.
Whether you have disabilities or not. Like you mean like some days you just don't feel like getting up and going to work. You know, but I do every day.
Yeah, I think what's cool is that. So I'm unabashed about the fact that from these conversations, I steal a lot of inspiration, because I think when you're able to converse with someone about life, about what they've gone through, their ups and their downs, it's sort of like an affirming thing, right? So like whether your life is in the best place possible or the worst place possible, it provides appropriate and necessary perspective to be able to look inward about what you have going on for yourself and like sort of reassess and get a really clear understanding that like for the most part we're all pretty lucky, right? And I think just what you do every day as for a job is really incredible. I mean, I've only known you a few months, but it's like to say that I'm like proud of your journey would be an understatement. I mean, it's incredible sort of what you've been able to overcome. I mean, Chazz, I'm serious. Like, you know, you look at the fact that like statistically you probably should be dead, right? There's no question that you.
I've died 3 times, dude.
Well, there you go.
Like on my way to the hospital when I got cracked in the head, like I flatlined for like 2.5 minutes. And then there was another time when like I know when I was younger, I know that I had a situation where I know that I wanted to see how long I could, when I was like 20, I wanted to see how long I could stay up on meth, and like I stayed up for 17 days.
Holy shit!
And like literally, like with like maybe an hour or 2 of sleep, where I'd nodded off a couple times, And like literally, like I think that I died like on the street in San Francisco, like on Upper Haight Street, like sitting against Double Rainbow's storefront on like right next to the I-beam in Upper Haight, like, and because I remember like hallucinating the entire like I felt like I was in a parallel world.
Wow.
I either astro projected out of there and into a different place that like in a different world that looked deep, the Upper Haight Street looks different, or I died for a minute and came back.
That's crazy. Have you ever heard the theory that every time we have a near-death experience, we actually do die, but our consciousness shifts to another version of ourselves in a different, multiverse or whatever? It was a very interesting concept that like basically revolves around the fact that we live in a simulation and we do inevitably end up dying for one time, and then we just get like a full-on system reboot. It fucking tripped me out for so long. I was not a fan.
I was able to shit well before the Matrix ever came out, man.
Yeah, right.
Because I've always been into some weird like sacred geometry, fucking like spiritual, like multi-dimensional. I grew up on group books. Like my grandpa was also an avid reader, and he used to bring me books. Like one of the first books I ever read when I was like 12 was It was I think it was a William Gibson book. I think it was like the short stories of the Necromancer series, of the short stories that had Johnny Mnemonic in it, and all those stories. And then I went on to read like Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, and and all of his Cryptonomicon and all the Philip K. Dick books, and it turns out like so I'm adopted, right? I was adopted when I was like 3 days old. Met my real mom when I was 23. It turns out she's a avid freak about sci-fi.
Wow.
And fucking and like when I brought her came to her house, what's her house in Vancouver, Washington, and like looked at her bookshelf, and I was like, why do you have all the same fucking books that I do?
That's weird.
You know what I mean? Like
that's weird.
That's so fucking strange, and we're so much alike, dude.
Yeah, that's fucking weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we had ins and outs. She passed now, but we had her ins and outs. But like it was cool to like meet her and my dad too. My dad, they both gone now, but my dad was like, when I met my dad, he had like 26 years clean and sober.
Wow.
He got sober like right after I was born, I guess. Like when I met him when I was like 26. And he used to host NA meetings out in Beaverton, outside of Portland.
Mm-hmm.
He had a home meeting that was his meeting he ran.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so like it's like when they said the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
It's true. No, I believe that completely. I butt up against that a lot, and I know that my father is going to be listening to this, but for a very long time, I used to butt up against the fact that everyone would tell me how much I'm like my father, and I'd be like, I'm nothing like him, But the truth is, when I look at it now, I'm a 36-year-old man who's very comfortable in his own skin and very clear on like who I am. I take that as a tremendous compliment. Like my dad's the fucking man. I couldn't be happier.
Dude, me and my dad, we didn't get along for years. Dude, we were like at odds constantly. We didn't even talk for like 3 or 4 years for a while there. We didn't I talked to my mom, but I wouldn't talk to my dad at all. My dad was like, I had nothing to say to him. You know what I mean? Like,
thankfully,
all my life, all I wanted was my dad to be proud of me. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. It was just his approval.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Isn't that every son and father, right? Everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. But like at the end of his life, and I admire him the way that everything like ended up. At the end of it, the last like 3 or 4 years I was going to school, I didn't graduate till like a little bit after he passed, but like he was so proud of me. I was all he could talk about, man.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like all of his friends, all our family, all of our relatives, like every dinner that anybody had when I wasn't around, all that he talked about was me and how proud he was.
Yeah,
and I was just like, wow, dude, like that. Hearing that is just like, you know what I mean? To hear him say that, and like, he was on dialysis for 7 years. He had liver failure, and he was too old and had too much shit wrong with him to actually get a new liver. So he was on permanent dialysis 3 days a week. And one day he called the whole family over to the house. He was like, here's the deal. I'm fucking tired, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off dialysis, and I know I'm going to die. But I'd rather, like, this COVID shit's coming, and I see the writing on the wall. It's like right before COVID hit, right before the lockdowns, like literally like right when it started happening. And he was like, I do not want to be in a hospital behind a plastic sheet without my family able to be next to me and touch me and talk to me and hold me. So I'm just going to end this now. And I was like, I don't know if I can fucking do that, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm that ballsy.
Yeah, no, it's
You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's balls.
I
That's
mean,
like,
I think
whoa.
yeah, it's one of those things like whenever I'm fortunate enough I haven't been through any sort of health crisis like that, but I think when you struggle with health for a long period of time, you know when you have fight left in you and when you don't. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean
He was 84, dude. Like,
it's a courageous
that's a legacy.
yeah, it's a courageous decision to make because at the end of the day, you are stamping your own death sentence. It's a
Yeah.
remarkably difficult choice to make, but I think at 84, you kind of come to grips with what your place is and be at peace with your life, and that's inevitably probably the right decision at the time, and yeah, I mean that's hard.
It's
Yeah,
funny because like the number two on my bucket list has always been like to live to be 101. He was like, why the fuck would you want to do that?
pass, hard pass,
He was like,
hard
I
pass.
was like, because I keep hoping that we're gonna get up in that cybernetic future that I can start getting my lungs like regrown and shit by a fucking
Dude,
getting out of pot. Like
we're
live to
probably
feel it.
we're probably in some fucking pod right now, or just some fucking code typed into
I know,
something. Who knows?
seriously.
Chaz,
Yeah, but I mean that's rad that I look at it to him, and like I hope that when I reach that age, if that happens to me, that like I have the balls to be able to do that.
yeah,
And the thing of me, like my dad and I, my biological and I, dad and I, from what I understand, we were pretty much alike too. But at the same time, like my dad that raised me, Nate, it's funny that I find myself using all of his these epitaphs, these little sayings. Dads that grew up in the 50s had these sayings. He's like, they can't never do you nothing you can't do.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Shit like that. Like, and just and like honesty is the best policy, and like, just little shit like that. And like I find myself at the same age that I used to hate when he was that age and I was a kid, and I'm at 52, and he like I'm hearing myself like repeat his fucking words verbatim out of my mouth. So, like, it's like some of it with clients.
Isn't that like so to me I'm a big fan of that. When I stop myself sometimes when I say something, I'm like, wow, that was my mom, or wow, that was my dad, or wow, that was my grandma. Like I think
Yeah,
about those things, and it's something that I really enjoy about life. It's because that it means like the interactions that you have with people are important. They last. They are like stuck with you, and I think that's cool. I like to spend the last bit of every podcast doing a little bit of a Q&A. Some of these are super easy, some of them are a little bit hard, but my first question for you is, what's your favorite movie?
the Matrix,
It's
the
good.
first one.
Did you?
Honestly,
I like it too. I watch all of them at least once a year. I'm a big fan of the writing and the
I'm
story.
in the Matrix too.
Say that again.
I'm in the Matrix too.
What does that mean?
Number two,
Oh,
in the scene of Zion, the
you're
Zion
in the
scene.
movie?
I'm actually in the movie in the Zion scene in Oakland. They filmed that on a soundstage in Oakland.
Oh no shit.
And I was an extra in as I was one of the extras. I'm one of the church burning guys with the toga, the white toga
Yeah.
on. I was like one of the guys. Like you barely see me. I'm like a blur as I go by the camera with like this like torch, and like I'm in a white toga thing.
I mean, that's fucking awesome. That's so
Yeah, so I
cool.
got to meet Keanu like and hang out with him on the set, and like actually like, and I actually asked him, I was like, "Do you think that we live in the Matrix?"
What did he say?
He was like, I guess that's for me to know and for you to figure out, isn't it? I was like, that's funny because it's the same thing that Anne Rice said to me when I met her about fucking vampires, motherfucker.
Well, that doesn't make me feel good.
God damn it.
What's your favorite book?
Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. For fiction. For nonfiction is one called My Life with the Little Goat, or the something about the tiny goat. What is it? What the hell is it called? I have it right here. Is that it? It's I don't have it right here. I thought I had it right here, but it's a book by Gaba Mate. This psychologist. It's called I think it's called My Life with the Tiny or Hungry Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
It's an addiction book. It's for nonfiction. It's like the only one that I've actually been able to pick up and not want to put down.
Nice.
So I usually fucking hate nonfiction.
Yeah. I go back and forth, but yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
Probably chicken skewered, the Thai chicken things you dip in the peanut sauce.
Nice.
Shit's so good.
Do you believe in an afterlife?
I think that I used to have a concept that like we live a certain amount of times and then whatever energy you are, when in the very last lifetime that we have, we become the teacher with all the things that we learned and gather in those previous lives.
Oh,
And then we become the master in the last life, and we get to like teach that to other people and give that to other people. And then after that life, we go back to this sense of like cosmic, energetic, like this one, something might call it God, whatever. Like we become like one with like this one with the cosmic kind of like entity of like energy that feeds the universe and empowers it. I think we come back to the source again.
So I'm gonna go with yes.
Yeah,
I like that.
A very strange one though.
No,
very complicated way of getting there.
I think that's kind of beautiful, honestly. What inspires you?
Other people's art, honestly, like sunsets and sundowns, like clouds in the sky. Honestly, that's one thing I love about Oregon is the clouds, man. Clouds here are fucking beautiful because I love just like laying on the grass and like looking up the clouds and like watching things form and take shape and like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like hoping that nightmare that I used to have as a kid doesn't ever come true. That like a bunch of like square ships that are like Borgs come out of it.
That's funny. What's the best piece of advice someone's ever given you?
Two things. Like one, my grandpa used to say, like, always leave the world a better place than you found it. Like always leave a place a little bit better than you found it, and that includes the world.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, I think recently I've heard it said by multiple people in the NFT community is that, and I it's funny because I pass this on to I've been using this in my counseling life. I've been telling people like, you know, life this is not a fucking sprint. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
You don't have to rush to get to the finish line. We don't have to like.
Yeah.
This isn't. We're so early that like, we're really prehistoric. We're like the dinosaurs with this NFT thing. So like but that also applies to life too.
Yeah.
It's like we don't have to rush to get all that experience in. It's like, you know what I mean? Like the whole WAGMI thing is actually real.
I think it's funny because like I came to photography very late in life. I just started full time about 2 years ago. You know, at 34 years old, I had lost my job and during the pandemic, and I had no idea what to do with my time and my life. And I found the thing that I love most in the world, and I'm making it my career. You know, I recently read that Vera Wang designed her very first dress at 40 years old, right? Like there's no timeline. There's no path that needs to be done at a certain time, right? It is up to you to decide the who, what, when, where, why, and how your life transpires, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. You know
who Thierry Mugler is?
Who?
Thierry Mugler?
I don't know.
He does like couture type stuff, design. He's the guy that designed or made the Angel for Men and Women cologne and perfume.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The oblong star with the rubber bottle and the glass star, the offset star.
Yeah, they like kind of like fuck each other when you put them together.
He went back to school at 52 years old to become take biology to learn how to make his own colognes and scents.
Wow.
After doing couture design and stage design and set design and photography and his own developing and his own like everything hands-on. The guy is like the fucking master, jack of all trades, master of none when it comes to fashion, photography, makeup, everything. And the guy went back at 52 years old to go to school for 4 years to get biology training to learn how to make sense that change with every single person's DNA that when it hits their body.
Wow. That's wild.
I mean, dude, the guy, and he's like in his 70s. He's like this strapping fucking German lad of like just big, huge guy and just buff and like looks like he's fucking 45 and he's so accomplished and so beautiful and if you look him up, like look up his fashion shows on YouTube, the stuff he was doing in 1993 1994 was like he's the reason I'm obsessed with coffee table books and making one. Literally, he's the very first coffee table book that I ever owned. It's called Fetish Fantasy Fashion.
Oh wait, I have heard of that book.
Yeah, that's him. That's He built every set, did all the lighting, and did all the couture design of all the clothes in that book.
Wow.
All of it.
That's wild.
He did all of it in that book, and that's why I'm doing the Shapes of Divine coffee table book, because of that book.
I mean,
Like, that's the reason why that book is coming to fruition.
Pretty clear cut. It's never too late. Story of life. It's never too late to start
I wrote
something.
him one time, and he responded to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he wrote to me. Yeah, I wrote to him, and I told him that I was going to school for addiction therapy, and that he was such an influence on me, and I just wanted to say thank you. And he actually got back to me and I said thank you and shit. And I was just like, and it wasn't just his assistant or something.
Right, it was him. Yeah,
it was him, and it was just like that was like one of those life moments of like, oh my god, this is someone that I idolize, and like
they gave me 5 minutes of their time, and I couldn't be more thankful for it. Yeah. I've had something very similar recently. I was trying to get one of my greatest inspirations, photography wise, to come on my podcast, and they very politely declined, but in a way that was really nice and really kind, and didn't necessarily have to go to that level to say no thank you, which I greatly appreciated. My last question for you is, give me a recommendation for something that you've recently consumed. It could be a book, a podcast, a movie, a TV show, just something that you've recently watched that you'd like everyone to check out.
I actually really liked, I spent the day yesterday and the day before binging through the new Netflix series, First Kill.
Oh, I don't know.
It was actually really well done.
Okay.
It's like a vampire monster killer, monster hunter kind of meet and fall in love kind of story. That's just I think it was cute, but at the same time it was just it really saw it was like the two different sides of life come together. You know what I mean? And they did a really good job with it. You know what I mean? It's more when it's like high school characters and their parents and their families, but also a very well done plot that I thought was really good. And that one, the Prime Video one, what the name was, Outer Range. That was a really good one too.
I really like that, but I'm fucking obsessed with Josh Brolin as a human being. So I'll watch anything with him. He just seems like the coolest fucking guy. I would love to have a beer with him. But that show is super cool. Left so many unanswered questions, which bugged the shit out of me. But
I know, dude, me too. I'm like, when's season? The next season? Let's fucking go.
A year from now, right? It sucks. Such a good show. I've got.
Did you hear that Prime's going to be making Snow Crash?
Oh, really? I did not hear that.
They're making a series.
Wow.
Out of Will Stevenson's Snow Crash.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon's just printing money, so why not? I've got two.
They're good at it.
Yeah, I've got two recommendations. I recently watched Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Sounds good.
Easily one of my favorite movies of all time. No spoilers. Go watch it. Just trust me. It was fucking amazing.
I saw it.
So good.
It was really good.
And if you're not watching The Boys on Amazon Prime, I don't know what you're doing.
I am.
Because it's the best fucking, so absurd. It's so wonderful. It's so good.
It's just ridiculous, dude. It's
so
just
ridiculous.
It's so over the fucking top. I'm just really, dude?
The first 15 minutes of the first episode of this season, I was on the floor crying, laughing with the exploding fucking penis. It was absurd.
I know. I was like, wait a minute. I had to rewind that shit. I was like,
it's just so
I was like, oh, fuck on, dude.
I saw an interview with the director before they came out with the episode, and he was like, I'm truly astonished that they let us fucking make this because it's so absurd, but it's so wonderful. Chazz, I've got a bit of a cheesy line. If you've been on my podcast, you're part of my family. I'm incredibly appreciative of your time and for coming on with me today. This was just such a joy and such a treat. I marvel at all that you've overcome in your life and what a positive force you've been. And I'm just incredibly thankful for your friendship, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Seriously.
No problem, buddy. Have a great day. Take care.
All right, you too.